welcome to my session. First and foremost, Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit would not have happened without all of these lovely sponsors. Thank you to Aqua Platinum sponsor, as well as the rest of the sponsors here. Tugboat is represented in the room as well. So thank you all. Moving on, a little bit about me. My name is Erik Baldwin. I'm a graphic UI and UX designer. I'm also a front-end engineer and a Drupal expert based out of Portland, Oregon. I see some familiar faces, so most of you know who I am. If not, check out my website, erikbaldwin.com. That's E-R-I-K. And we'll just dive right in, get into the meat and potatoes of this. So, this is a lighthearted conversation. It's called We're Better Than This, mostly because, not because I'm better than you, or because I figured it all out or have all the answers, but because collectively, we can all do better, period. Hard stop. This is mostly a discussion about things we've come to normalize that we can move beyond constructively. These aren't hot takes. These are room temperature observations. The patterns that we've all seen and inherited and perpetuated, often with the best intentions. I'm not a civil engineer, but I do kind of know what roads are best laid with intentions. I think we all do. Everything I'm about to walk through, I've done it. I've defended it, I've implemented it, I've convinced others it's a good idea, and that it was the right thing to do at the time. Past Erik, bless his heart, meant well. But in hindsight, I can see how all these intentions and starry-eyed aspirations sometimes contributed to exactly the kinds of nonsense that we have to deal with day to day. And many things that I now get asked to fix. This isn't a blame game, it's a mirror. A loving roast, a tour of common practices we've normalized, ones that maybe we should stop. If something hits a little too close to home, that's good. It means you care. Caring is how we get better. If we don't care, we won't get better. So, with that, let's go ahead and dive in. MVPs, minimum viable products. Probably heard it in planning meetings. We'll just get the MVP out. We'll iterate over time. Spoiler alert, that time is finite. Later never comes. The MVP is supposed to be lean. It's a focused way to validate a product, an idea, with the least amount of effort. But what it's become in practice is tech debt. Justified tech debt. Somewhere along the way, MVP became shorthand for, we didn't plan, we didn't test, we hope no one notices. I get it. Time is tight. Budgets are even tighter. Resources are even more scarce. But when you ship a broken, half-baked experience and slap MVP on it, it's like a bandage. You're just not taking a shortcut. You're setting the tone for everything that's going to follow in that instance. So if your platform is garbage, well, garbage in, garbage out. We've all heard that, right? One thing that is in production is now someone's job to maintain. If garbage is in prod, and you're not the one maintaining it, well, I'm sure your coworkers have lovely things to say about what you've implemented in production. The data, dependencies, expectations, you can refactor them later, but that assumes, one, someone will remember how it works. Two, there's time in the roadmap to address those things later. And three, that anyone actually cares that the system is broken and hard to maintain. Most temporary MVP hacks are just legacy code with an alibi. Sorry, I'm trying to get my cursor back to my other screen. Do you hate it when you plug into something that's a new display? There we go. What did I just say? Most temporary MVP hacks are just legacy code with an alibi. True MVP still requires intent. It requires integrity, and it asks the question, what's the smallest version of this product that delivers real value that doesn't make us ashamed? Because if your MVP creates more pain than insight, what exactly are we validating? The users, will they tolerate anything? That's probably what we're trying to validate. We're better than this. MVP isn't permission to ship garbage. It's an invitation to build smarter. Next up, Agile theater. We all love TSA, right? We all love having to spend an hour in line just to take our shoes off. I've been in enough agile environments to know that a lot of them are just waterfall in a hoodie. The language changes, sprint, stand-up, retrospective, but the mindset remains the same. Fixed scope, fixed deadlines, 40 open JIRA tickets marked in progress, and a team that's too tired to care about any of it. What we often call agile is actually agile theater. It's a performance. We do stand-ups, but they become status updates. Sprint planning, just project management with a burn-down chart. Retros, held, but not heard. No takeaways to make improvements later. Let's not forget the classic writing the JIRA ticket after the feature's been built. Or writing the tests after we've already validated everything manually. The real kicker, though, is that this performance works. Leadership sees it and they go, look at that, we're agile, we're moving, we're sailing, we can do anything we want. However, it's just a facade. We can say, see, we did the thing, we're agile, look at our process dashboard. Success is measured by motion, not momentum, by ceremony, not by outcome. A project without momentum stalls quicker than, a jalopy going downhill. Agile was meant to empower teams to deliver iteratively and to respond to change. But somewhere along the line, it became a cargo cult. We carry all this baggage with us because it's just the way we work. We perform the rituals hoping to summon productivity, but we never question whether the system still works for the humans inside it. Most teams aren't failing because of Agile. They're failing because they're pretending to be Agile while still thinking in waterfall terms. Real agility doesn't come from JIRA workflows. It comes from trust, feedback loops, and the permission to adapt and change without guilt. So here's my rule of thumb. If the process feels heavier than the work, you're probably doing it wrong. Stop the theater, start the conversations. I want to talk about time, specifically how we tend to destroy it for ourselves. Engineers don't work in minutes. We work in flow, in context. Nothing breaks flow like meetings, especially meetings that could have been a Slack message, an email, or better yet, nothing at all. You've seen these calendars, 1 hour sync, 30-minute check-in, 2 stand-ups somehow scheduled for the same day for the same project. By the time you could start thinking deeply, you're already mentally preparing for the next interruption. We say we value deep work, and then we schedule it in 45-minute time blocks. Chunks between 6 shallow distractions throughout the rest of the day. And what do we actually get done? A bunch of context switching and some plans for planning. One of my favorites, however, is the calendar block labeled focus time. We all use Google Calendar, right? We've seen the type of calendar event to be focus time. We treat that like it's a shield. How many people actually don't schedule meetings over your focus time? What's the excuse then with that person who scheduled that meeting? Oh, well, it was the only time everyone was available. Our focus time is then not focus time, and it's not respected at all. It's as if the label gives us some armor. It doesn't. Let's not forget the 4 p.m. invite for a quick discussion. Or that 15-minute check-in, which is rarely ever relegated to just 15 minutes. It's a guaranteed way to ruin the end of your day, whether it was a good day or not. The truth is, we've normalized a meeting culture that turns engineers into reaction machines. Instead of solving hard problems, we're context switching like it's competitive sport. Some of us may be good at it. Some of us probably aren't good at it. Just like with multitasking. We can be really good at it, having a conversation, attending a meeting, handling Slack messages, but at the end of the day, context switching is more exhausting than hours of deep work on end. Leadership wonders why output is down and people are burned out. We treat every minute of availability as an invitation, every calendar opening as fair game. But time isn't a resource, it's the foundation of productive thought. Protect it, prioritize it. Don't just talk about maker time. Actually make time and defend it. Because the next time someone says, it'll only take 15 minutes, just remember, it's never only the 15 minutes. Does this resonate with anyone?
Yes. I'll never find it again.
Exactly. Let's talk about documentation. We've all been told it's in the wiki, as if that was a solution and not a deflection. Maybe it is, somewhere. Page 3 of a 12-tab sprawl. Last updated by someone who left the company 2 reorgs ago. Writing things down is important, but writing them down doesn't make them real. Publishing guidelines doesn't create standards. It just creates a record of thought, a record of a meeting, a record of consensus. Documentation is passive. It relies on everyone remembering to do the right thing and having the time, context, and patience to track it down and interpret it. If your entire strategy for consistency is, quote, we documented it, end quote, then you've put the burden of adaptation on the reader instead of embedding it into the systems that we work within every day. Real standards show up where the work happens. Linters that enforce spacing, naming, accessibility. Scaffolding tools that just suggest the pattern. They don't just suggest the pattern, but they generate it for you. CI gates that remind you when something is a little bit off and it needs addressing. When teams don't follow a standard, it's usually not rebellion, it's friction. Every deviation ends up justified with the same old tired excuses that boil down to a single sentence. There wasn't time to check the docs. Write the docs, yes, but reinforce them with tools. Bake them into your process. Turn them from advice into muscle memory. A documented standard without tooling isn't a standard at all. It's just another forgotten file. And documentation without follow-through is just written intention no one was empowered to uphold. So, create your docs. They're important because they validate the reason for the tooling. Your docs should always answer who, what, where, and how. If they only answer one of those, and it's not the who, so you can ping somebody when you don't know the answer, you're doing it wrong. Design systems. How many people are still creating pages based off of flat images and not code? Anyone? Okay. Design systems. Everyone wants one. Everyone says they have one. And then you look closer. What they actually have is a Figma file with a few components in it. A spacing scale, a button labeled primary that's probably been overridden 30 different times by different teams. And that's not a design system. It's a style suggestion. A real design system is a partnership. It's not owned by design, it's not owned by engineering, or even marketing. It's a product in its own right. It only works when design, marketing, design system engineers, business analysts, stakeholders, production engineers, and the client end users are all collaborating and are all equally accountable. Because when things break, it's not the design system engineer who gets paged. It's not the Figma file that ends up in the incident report. It's the person building the actual product under a deadline that's on the hook for making the fix. That's why it's critical the system isn't just published, but actually usable. Versioned, tested, and maintained. Design implemented as code. Production-ready code that comes with its own tests, its own UX validation, and its own user feedback applied to it. If devs are rebuilding components because the ones in the system don't match the spec, or worse, they don't even render properly or as expected, then you don't have a system. You have a design debt in denial. If designers are still dragging rectangles instead of using actual web components or code-based components, that's not craft, that's regression. Take a look at Designers Do It in the Browser, which is a presentation I authored in 2011, where all the design for Florida Drupal Camp's website was done in flat HTML in an about blank page in our browser, then saved and shared across the people that were implementing the different pages of the site. A functioning design system helps everyone move faster, stay aligned with their standard, and reduce risk. But that only works if it's built with shared goals, shared responsibility, and shared ownership. If your system isn't versioned, tested, adopted, and enforced, it's not a system. It's a prototype with a marketing plan. And someone else gets to clean up the mess when it fails in production. I'm pretty sure that speaks for itself, right? Let's make something very clear. Engineers aren't lazy. We're just efficient. So if no one is reading our docs, it's probably not because they don't care. It's because the documentation sucks. I'm talking about readmes that start with to do, add instructions. Pages that explain what a function does, but not why it exists. Internal wikis that haven't been updated since a manager said, we should document this, back in 2018. Most documentation isn't written for the person who needs it. It's written for the person who already understands it. And therein lies the problem. Engineers reach for documentation in moments of uncertainty, when we're stuck, blocked, or just trying not to break production. And what do they find? Half-finished notes, outdated diagrams, a tutorial that skips the hard part that is most susceptible to breaking. And if you're lucky, you might find a link to a deprecated GitHub repo that had more documentation than the current refactored system. What they don't find is clarity. Documentation is meant to clarify everything that we do, from process to implementation. Good documentation answers questions before they have to be asked. It explains the context of a decision. It shows working examples, and it makes assumptions explicit, which, again, answers questions before they're asked. That takes time. Time, which we've already talked about, is never budgeted. So the documentation becomes useless unless something's already gone wrong. Then we can't move forward unless we document it. But even then, myopic focus on fixing the thing now and preventing that one little edge case from happening again is not holistic to all of the documentation that we rely on for our systems. If your best engineers can't, or worse yet, won't, write documentation, then the culture around documentation is broken. When the docs are bad, everyone starts hoarding knowledge in Slack threads and undocumented scripts, or even just in their small silos of teams. Now you're back to tribal knowledge, again, which was the way it was before we had docs. Documentation isn't a luxury. It's infrastructure for the things we do day to day. It helps set a platform for the rest of your team and other teams within your organization to do what you do and also enhance it and make everyone move forward together. When you treat it like infrastructure, maintained, monitored, and improved over time, people will actually use it. Otherwise, it's all just noise. And we're not here to read noise, we're here to ship shit. Which leads me to performance. Performance is very important. We all have performance dashboards for our products here, right? We all do some kind of, I'm sorry. We all should be monitoring how performant our solutions are, because if they're not performant, they're probably not good solutions. But just like with Agile, we have performance theater. It impacts UX, accessibility, SEO, even conversion rates. Somewhere along the line, though, measuring performance became more important than actually improving it. What we have is performance theater. You know it when you see it, though. A lighthouse score of a perfect 100 until you scroll. First paint is fast, but everything behind that spinner and an asynchronous UI takes forever to load. Metrics look great in staging, but they explode in production because, again, your resources are more finite in the higher environments. Worse yet, everything's optimized for the home page because that's what the CEO checks. Real performance is holistic. It's not just about load times. It's about responsiveness, stability, perceived speed, and consistency across the entire experience. A green metric doesn't mean the user is happy. It just means the dashboard is quiet. Let's talk about monitoring. We wire up tools like New Relic, Catchpoint, Core Web Vitals, and then never set alert thresholds. We get so much telemetry that it's impossible to connect what happened and what went wrong, that we give up, restart the servers, and everything's fine and stable. For how long? We get, sorry, I'm repeating myself. My notes are not highlighted very well. The results? Pretty graphs. unread reports, and a production app that still feels like molasses in January. Metrics are useful, but they're not the goal. They're intended to help us troubleshoot and be better later. The goal is making real people have a smoother, faster, more stable experience using the things that we've built. So stop measuring to impress and start measuring to improve. If your metrics say that the site is fast, but the users say it's slow, believe the user. Always, 100% of the time. Just like in matters of taste where the customer is always right, the users using your product don't know the back end and how it was structured. So if they tell you it's broken, it's broken. Titles without authority. How many people here have leadership above them that they believe are ineffective? Is it their own fault? No. It's because they got a promotion and they weren't ready for those responsibilities. The fun part about this pattern is that the higher your title, the blurrier your job becomes. We give people these big titles: principal engineer, staff engineer, architect, but we don't give them clarity. And then we wonder why the work doesn't align with organizational goals. One person's writing a technical strategy, another is triaging bugs, and a third is acting as a de facto project manager while also unblocking junior devs and putting out architectural fires. You know what I'm talking about. Many of us are that person. You have influence, but no authority. Responsibility, but no backing. You're accountable for outcomes that you have literally no control over outside of communicating with those that do. That's not leadership, it's liability applied to a single person. We call that a single point of failure, both technical and in human relations. It happens because companies want the optics of seniority: career ladders, fancy titles, cross-functional initiative leads, but they don't always design a system around what those roles should enable, both for subordinates, for leadership, and for organizational goals. There's no time set aside for strategy, no support for saying no, and no protection from downward scope creep disguised as visibility. On the flip side, we also hand out responsibility like candy, with vague expectations and no teeth. Everyone's told to, quote, own the outcome, but no one's given the runway to actually deliver that outcome. If you want real leadership and accountability, it starts with clear roles, clearer responsibilities, and actual organizational support behind those titles. Otherwise, you're just rebranding chaos as distributed ownership. The only distribution is burnout. Which leads to siloed teams. We all know what a code smell is, right? We all have linters, we all have these code quality gates that tell us that these things are smelly, we should probably address them. That exists as well in human culture and corporate culture. So let's talk about silos a little bit, not the grain variety. The invisible walls that we build between teams, roles, and departments. I've worked with front-end teams that aren't allowed to call APIs directly. Back-end teams that don't understand the UI that implements their code. And platform teams that build tooling that absolutely no one asked for. These aren't org charts, they're echo chambers. They create what I like to call a corporate smell, a kind of slow rot that shows up in the product itself. You can feel it when you use the thing. Inconsistent behaviors, features that don't integrate, and user flows that die halfway through. That's what happens when teams are optimized for local ownership instead of shared outcomes. Conway's Law isn't a cautionary tale, it's a diagnosis. If your product feels disjointed, odds are your teams are too. The real problem, silos don't just slow you down, they erode empathy. They shift responsibility sideways. They create friction in places where there should be collaboration. Breaking down silos doesn't mean everyone has to be in every meeting. It means alignment in the cross-team context. A shared language of mutual accountability. The best teams I've worked with in the past weren't organized by ownership, they were organized by impact. Those teams, when something went wrong, no one said, "That's not my problem." They literally just jumped in and fixed it because someone had to. We've all heard the phrase before, why we can't have nice things. So let's stay in that organizational vein for a moment. Silos are just one part of the problem, but so is open hostility towards quality of life improvements. You might suggest a fix to a flaky local development environment. You'll get in response, that's nice, but it's not in our roadmap. You suggest some automation for a painful manual task. We don't have time for that right now. You might want to consolidate copy-pasted patterns across your code base and abstract them into reusable methods. And your PM tells you, we need to focus on feature delivery right now. This mindset specifically treats anything that doesn't produce a visible, ticketable, shareholder-facing deliverable as wasted time. But here's the thing. Engineers are the ones that pay for that time. We pay for that debt. Every small improvement deferred becomes another friction point absorbed by people building and maintaining the product. While leadership gets their dashboard metrics, the team is left duct taping workflows together just to survive the sprint and push all that tech debt off to another time. I've lived this. I've asked for time to refactor, to clean up a mess, to invest in tools for the process improvements that would have paid dividends for the whole team. And I've been told, more than once, that time is better spent delivering features. And if the system is difficult to build, test, deploy, and maintain, what exactly are we delivering? More pain? Quality of life work is often framed as indulgent. It isn't. It's proactive. It's protective. It's what separates sustainable systems from death marches. What often gets missed is that chaos feels familiar, but it's not controllable. It's the silent controller. When everything's on fire and everything is a priority and everything's important, nothing is. The truly important work is the kind that enables delivery, even if it doesn't directly show up in a change log. So if someone proposes a fix that makes the system easier to build, test, ship, or debug, don't dismiss it. That's not wasted time. That's leverage. So, what do we do with all of this information? I've just spent, 20 minutes up here ranting about dysfunction, disillusionment, design tokens, but this wasn't just event session. This was a mirror. Here's the good news. These things are fixable. Stop calling it an MVP if you're going to treat it like a final product. If your agile process doesn't serve the team, change the fucking process. Kill half of your meetings and you'll double your output. Document with intent, then enforce it with tooling. Make it muscle memory. Design systems? Treat them like production software, not a side quest for marketing. Metrics? Use them to diagnose, not decorate. Give titles teeth or don't hand them out. And for the love of all that is maintainable, if you want cross-functional work, talk to each other. The industry isn't broken, but it's tired. So here's my challenge to you. Stop normalizing dysfunction and start naming it. Fix what you can and refuse to work on what you can't. And most importantly, never ever accept, quote, that's just how we do it, end quote, as a reason to keep doing it. We're engineers, designers, architects. We build the systems that shape how people work and live and interact with the entire world around them. We can and should do better. The next time someone says, that's just how it is, say it with me, we're better than this. Thank you all. I set aside some time. I think we've got about 15 minutes for questions and answers. Again, I don't have all the answers and solutions, but hopefully this facilitates some discussions amongst your team members and your leadership to help you actually make effective change. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
There's more important questions in this, but can you remind me what Conway's law is?
Oh man, I don't know it verbatim, but I can look it up.
People say that word a lot.
Best structure.
Maybe I used to know.
Reflects the structure of what you're getting.
Conway's law is the principle that organizations and design systems will inevitably produce a design whose structure mirrors their own communication structure.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I know I feel like
It's okay.
Talking about design systems back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a design system isn't just a visual design. A design system is how we architect an entire process or set of processes.
Yeah.
The Conway's law, I think, came from human interface design for machinery. I'd have to go refresh my etymological source of that, but I'm pretty sure that's where it originated. Yeah.
So I had one thought, just as looking at the documentation thing, and maybe this is influenced by I have like some good friends who are really skilled documenters. Like some people who are like good at building link type of thing aren't always good at like communicating that to others.
Mm-hmm.
And like one thing that I've seen work really well is like getting a buddy. Like if you feel like you're having trouble, like words are hard sometimes.
Oh, very.
Doing
yeah.
it and explaining it can be really tricky, but if you have a buddy and you're working on it together to help you express that into words, that can be great.
Yeah, and collaboration is key for documentation because I don't think it's any expectation that one sole individual understands the entirety of a system. But if you're going to make a system of record for that system, it's best to vet that with the people who use that system to either fill gaps or add nuance.
And it helps to get like a little focus group together to help you identify, like when you have a draft, like help you identify where your gaps are. Because somebody else will see more clearly, like, oh, I don't understand this part.
Yeah, and that goes exactly to the point I made about a lot of times technical documentation in a repo, it misses the parts that are most brittle and tend to break. So you get through an install process, and somewhere between step 6 and step 7, there should be other steps, but there aren't. So you hit the error, and now you have to go find who made the last commit to that portion that broke. And then, oh wait, they're on PTO for the next 2 weeks. Who else can do this? Yeah, documentation, it should drive everything we do, but at the same time, it's good to codify that documentation with tooling. That way, someone, commit message conventions. Set up a template. Get template. It exists. It already fills in everything if you type git commit. So then you can actually use an example to tell your developers, we want the ticket number and a description of your branch, and then we want the type of fix and the scope of the files that were changed and why this change was necessary. You know, don't just git commit, fix things, push. Fixed what? Any other questions?
I like what you said about the design systems, how it's like a shared responsibility. That's something I keep running into, where it's like, it can't just be built once and like expect that it just works after that.
Right.
It's like the next developer that implements a component from it, they're gonna have questions about like, what is the correct usage of this component, both technically and in terms of like, when should I use this from a design sense?
Yeah.
And
even its capabilities and intention, right?
And you constantly run into the edges of those.
Mm-hmm.
And like then you have to have a conversation about, well, how do I make a variation of this? And that affects everyone else.
Right.
So like if there's no ownership of the design system, then it doesn't help.
Yeah, and even if there is ownership of the design system, if there's no way to effectively create a variant that doesn't affect the base structure of that web component, for instance, what are you doing? Like, or do you have to re-author it and then just add your own nuances to it? Well, good job. You created a fork that now only you maintain. Anyone else? All right. Well, go ahead.
I was thinking about the, I forget which slide it was under, but just about, you were talking about how, like, you know, if an engineer is looking at something that's messed up and wants to go back in and refactor it, wants time to refactor that, and it's like, you always got to be shipping new features or whatever. So when we're working on tempo, we're like building gaps where, you know, the engineers can fill that, like, you know, you're working on this epic now and that completes, you've got 2 or 3 weeks or something until we start the next epic. We can kind of fill that with whatever you want. But I'm curious, like, what other folks do to mitigate that in their processes, because it's something where, you know, we think about and try to make sure that there's room for the engineers to work on, whether it's technical debt or just, you know, working on the work itself, sort of a thing. Yeah.
Well, it's nice that you have time at the end of the sprint, or
Yeah.
tail end of a sprint, to not just be told, go pull the next high priority thing from the backlog. But yeah, I would love for anyone else to weigh in.
You put up a fire, great, go put up the next fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that in some ways, there's lots of projects where as long as you're closing Jira tickets, it's fine. So you just have to make sure there's Jira tickets for refactor. And people are like, just close this ticket, and as long as you're documenting things and breaking it up into lots of little tickets and stuff, people love that shit.
Yep.
Corporate theater is a fun game.
Well, I mean, that goes into performance theater as well as the agile theater. Corporate theater is kind of how we all have to operate in anything that's more than an agency. But to your point, like the sprint cadence and making time for quality of life improvements, I know, like, I think marketing does 20% time too, right? For like fixing tech debt or working on some project that's not technically part of feature sets. Okay. But ideally, you want to be able to take your code, because sometimes you can't, like, perfect is a blocker for everything. But near perfect, with what works now, nothing stops you from adding a to-do comment. And I usually follow the general rule of, like, I'll get all my work done, and then I'll look at my IDE and get all the to-dos. And I'll go create tickets in the backlog for all of them. I'll tag them as tech debt. And then, if I have time to go fix them, or if someone else does and they're in the same system, or if they're editing code that was already edited previously by me in that file and they see the to-do, if they finish their work or I finish my work, we can go back and say, I'm going to do this and fix this right now, because now we're starting to abstract and extend these functions. So let's fix the problem before it balloons into something bigger.
I think it could be an organizational thing too, like what's the value of the company as a whole? Are we making high quality stuff?
Yeah.
Because if that's a value, that you have that trickle down.
Organizational value is kind of the impetus for making change.
And then the project manager too. If the developers have a good relationship with the project manager and they're pointing out, like, hey, this is a problem area, or the project manager is saying, hey, can you guys be looking for the and tell me about them so we can start working it in. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, because as a project manager, sell it to me. So tell me, like, why do we need to do this? Why do I need to go fight for this to get it in, like, between features? It's like, okay, yeah, we really need to refactor this because it's costing one time, blah, 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 blah. Great. I'll take it up there and I'll get it scheduled in, but I need to kind of have a case for it.
Don't you know about it?
Yeah, I need to know about it, and then I need to, like, how much time is it going to take, and, let's factor it into the, next features or whatever. So, and we'll get into Jira and we'll sneak it in or whatever, but depending on the client or, but yeah, you gotta make a case for it sometimes.
Yeah.
Budget's a big part of that story.
Yes.
Like,
Well, yeah, when you're working with a client and they're only worried about, like, we want you working on features, but, you can tell them, well, we really need to work on this as well. So it's a process thing to make those features happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
So as a PM, I have a question for you.
Sure.
As a PM, do you find that with the clients that you might have to address some tech debt with and it doesn't deliver a feature, are they receptive to that idea, or do you have to actually explain it to them in the sense of, if we don't fix this, it takes X amount of hours out of every sprint because we have to deal with this kludge?
yeah, usually I try to, explain the cost of not doing it.
Okay.
But sometimes you just kind of sneak it in there. I mean, you don't necessarily have to call it out.
It doesn't go in a change log, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just something that has to happen.
Okay.
So,
Part of making the product.
yeah.
I like the clients are expecting us to, like, not make these mistakes.
Mistakes are inevitable. The gravity of those mistakes is what's
Well, and how you
nuanced.
respond.
Sort of like, as Drupal professionals, you wouldn't make Drupal blunders.
There's still a million ways to do the same thing in Drupal. That hasn't changed in
Exactly.
20 years. Go ahead, Chad.
So, so there's something that I like to look at as what a lot of people refer to as a maturity model.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you don't have a student who's a D student jump up to an A student. It just doesn't happen. And when you're working with teams, you have a team dynamic. You've got stakeholders, you've got designers, you've got project managers, you've got people that the stakeholders are accountable to, who control budgets and timing of things. So the way I like to approach those issues, because I've been a product owner, a project manager, I've literally had almost every role. It's stupid. But I think what I like to bring to the table is just understanding where you are. Are you in reaction mode, that crisis mode? Where are we on the radar? Is everything urgent and important? Or can we actually start to address those things, have more mature backlog grooming sessions together, and then start to iterate a little bit more towards how do you quantify and qualify your purpose as a department or as an organization? How do we incorporate that into our decisions about what goes into a release or how we groom things? So you're taking these little baby steps as a team to get closer and closer to that maturity.
Mm-hmm.
But you're doing it on purpose. You're showing your math to the team saying, look, we're not going to get to be an A student this semester. That's okay. We have to accept that that's the case. But you're slowly getting out of reaction mode and a little bit more into proaction mode, and you're tracking that progress together.
Well, you're adding value to it as well, and value is multifaceted.
But you said the right thing, is like, how do you prove that? And you prove
Well,
that by establishing those metrics together
yes.
as a team.
And then I think a lot of that is,
Like what
we have a
matters?
very trusted relationship with our client.
Yeah.
We've been working on this site for 3+ years, and so they trust that we would come to them and not just be wasting their
It's
time,
credibility
right? So
and practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we're doing this for a reason, and it is a very mature team and a mature product. So
But you don't start that.
no, but we haven't started it. So that's why I'm like, so yeah, that puts a lot into the context
Yeah.
of why I say, because in this scenario we have a very trusted relationship with the client.
Sure.
So
I've had to, I found value too in using that, like, grading things out, kind of like, are we reactive? Is it important, urgent? Is it, like, important, less urgent? And then also, like, so I tend to be, like, use the Eisenhower grid a lot. And then that helps me lay out too, like, in talking to the teams, because I'm working with other people, usually having to explain things to a customer.
mm-hmm.
Being able to make that case of, like, we're going to do this amount of work because it's going to avoid this pain for you down the road, is like, that's a really powerful case to be able to make, especially like, in addition to, like, the potential cost savings, that's another way of, like, positioning how to do those, like, sometimes it's not always fun to have to do those infrastructure updates and things, but if it's gonna save you, like, time, money, energy down the road.
Well, it allows you to do fun stuff.
Yeah, and then the customer's like, okay, all right, I'm on board.
This sort of we treat it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Client, right? Client, you need food and shelter before you can achieve personal transcendence.
Yeah.
You need a reliable, safe, secure website before
Yeah.
you can start doing the fun, exciting, like whiz-bang
Yeah.
stuff that they come to us asking for.
Yeah.
You need scalable and secure infrastructure before you can actually expect to not be woken up at 3 in the morning by PagerDuty. Yeah.
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 So you want a personalization engine? Have you tried organizing your content?
Yes. Have you
Yeah.
tried taxonomy?
Yeah, right. It's a great new feature, but this great new invention for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's called
But
common sense.
That's like another area where it helps to have the buddy system, right? Because you have people who are, like, more skilled at, like, explaining that to the customer and joining with the people doing the work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Mhm.
And you can have team turnover, which changes the maturity of the overall
Yeah,
team.
that's true.
yeah.
That's like literally like my job at my company. My background is in marketing communications. I could not write a line of code to save my life. But I can talk to them about it this way.
Right. Amber, you had something you wanted to say you're at?
Oh, well, I don't know. I was just reading this book about called Anyone Can Learn Music, and it was written by a neuroscientist, and he made an interesting point about mistakes. And the more pronounced of a mistake that you make, the stronger the signal to your brain that you need to change the way that you're doing it. And I wonder if there's, like, that could be either metaphor or, like, a literal way that we can introduce change into our organizations, is maybe it's in the retrospective, right?
Yeah.
Instead of that being theater, like, what can we do to create safe spaces to talk about mistakes and feel the results of those mistakes in a strong enough way that sends the signal to whoever needs to,
Improve,
whoever needs to receive that signal, so that things can change. I was just struck by this talk because I haven't been a part of these conversations in like years,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
I've been writing tutorials for 12 years. This is the same stuff that we were talking about 12,
Yeah.
13, 14 years ago.
Yeah,
It's
and
the
just
same-
and just to be
it's the
clear,
same
this is
thing.
not a reflection of my
Yeah.
current employment. These
Yeah.
are things that I've seen perpetuated over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's just
and they're
happening.
still happening
Yeah.
today.
They're human nature.
Right,
Like,
right.
They're not unique to technology.
No.
They're just the evolution of increasingly sophisticated, like, cultures and systems
Yep.
around doing anything.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you all for joining my talk. Thank you for the conversation at the end.